On tonight's special edition of the Book Club, publishing juggernaut Andy Griffiths, the man who has cracked the secret of how to get kids reading. Author of over 30 books, he's sold millions and won a stack of awards. From the wildly disgusting Just series, the infamous The Day My Bum Went Psycho, to his latest, the 65-story Treehouse, the fastest-selling Australian book in a decade. He's taken his unique brand of comedy out on the road to become Australia's King of the Kids. How? We caught up with him at his Melbourne home to find out. Hey!
How are you?
So, Andy, I want to talk about your overnight success and how it is that even though, you know, you've been publishing for years, you've been on the New York Times bestseller list many times, the Treehouse is on its 5th in the series, you've become famous. Where did it come? What happened?
I don't know, because when I started, I was trying to be a proper writer. You know, I was thinking, yes, I can be very funny and kids laughing, but now I want to be a proper writer.
Do you mean adult writer or serious?
I didn't know. I had been an English teacher. I'd been writing these funny things for my kids, and I thought, I could do this for a living. Well, I'd love to do this for a living, but I'd have to clean up my act. So I did a fiction writing course and an editing course, and I tried to write like I felt a proper writer would write. And I just didn't have it in me because there was this a voice of anarchy which continually grabbed hold of the pen and said, this is where we're going.
What was your proper writing voice like?
I was very besotted with, say, Raymond Carver, and I was trying to imitate Raymond Carver.
So minimalist?
Stories. Minimalist, quite, you know, sad and dramatic. And I could do that, and it was passably passable. But this little anarchistic voice used to come through and it would just light up the page. And I'd go, wow, that's amazing, but it's not proper writing. Yeah. And after a while, I just thought, I really love this, and it's very funny and it's different. Now, if I commit to this, I'm probably never going to have a career as a proper writer. I'm probably committing suicide as a commercial writer. But you know what? A lot of my heroes are outsider artists, people like Captain Beefheart or Marquis Smith of The Fall, people who don't care whether people are getting the joke or not. They burrow into their worlds, and I went, I'm just going to do that.
And very perversely, as an improper writer, you've been a raging success.
Yeah, because I think, well, I say yeah very confidently, but I think it's because I was so involved pleasing myself, following my own star, that kids saw that and said, that's really fascinating, and that there's something authentic about that I'm not trying to second guess what a kid likes. I'm genuinely entertaining myself and my own inner child. And then kids are very good at sussing out whether something's real or put on. And so I think I just had the right tone for them. They'll say, how do you know what we're thinking? How do you know what makes us laugh? And I go, well, because I know what made me laugh at 10, and this voice that comes out when I write knows what makes itself laugh. So.
And is it different from when you were 10 to now when they are 10? Or is it exactly the same things make them laugh?
I reckon it's exactly the same, and this is...
Really? For all their screens and the sophistication?
Yep. They love mischievous humour, they love turning the world on its head, they love logic that doesn't really make sense, they love going to somewhere slightly dangerous and slightly scary, but they love being guided there by a narrator who knows where they're going. Someone like Roald Dahl, I think you just have this lovely voice and you just submit to it. And I studied him very closely, and he often talks directly to the reader. He says, now, reader, now we're going to go here.
Given what you're saying, that the children are your ultimate target, judge, audience, everything, when you got this award recently, which was huge, the first time a children's author has received the industry's ultimate accolade of, you know, the Book of the Year. Did you care? Because they weren't kids, they were adults telling you you were fab.
Yes, I cared because I love children's literature. I take it very seriously. For many years, there were no awards from adults. I would win Children's Choice Awards every single year, but the adults were nowhere to be seen. And both Terry and I started to feel, at first we were miffed, and then after a while we went, this is great, no one's watching what we're doing. It's just us and the kids, we can just have a ball and let's just go for it. And so we've just been playing and being as stupid as we want.
What's the appropriate response to
Send in a killer duck?
To a chip thief? Yes. Throw a bomb at them.
Terry Denton, of course, being your idiot illustrator.
Yeah, my very talented idiot and co-conspirator, and we egg each other on, and we're a terrible combination.
It's a very long horse that goes all the way around.
Right. And how does it protect the chips, though? Is it gas warfare as well?
It could be gas warfare as well, yeah.
Yeah.
The 13-story treehouse won Children's Book of the Year in 2010. It was a shock, an absolute shock. We went, what? There's people watching? But
it does elevate the status of children's literature in a way, which has always been a bit...
It's always been, the adult books are the proper ones and children's books, that's what you do if you can't write a proper book. And if you can't write a proper children's book, you write humour. So
You're down.
I've been the lowest of the low, and I love that.
Let's go back to the climb, because it took you a long time to get where you are now. Now, I do particularly, in passing, we are going to touch on your days as a punk rocker.
Must we?
Andy Griffiths. Oh, yes, we're coming back to that. This is you age what?
Oh, probably 7 or 8.
In a tree. Is this what the whole Treehouse series is about?
Yeah, what's important about this is that there is no treehouse. And great lack in my childhood, thanks Dad. But my cousin had a treehouse, so we used to play in his treehouse. So I was aware of what fun it is to be up off the ground, invisible to adults. There's that kind of idea again, and in a game.
And this is your school photo, and I was not 100% sure which was you. I want to guess. You tell me. I think is that one.
That's the one.
Is that the one?
Yes, the distinctive bowl haircut.
Tell me about that boy. You were
that
then...
was grade 5 with Mrs. Jensen, and my best friend at the time was Danny Pickett, and he was quite a tearaway and a real larrikin and got into a lot of trouble.
Because you were quite a goody-goody, weren't you?
I was...
well-behaved.
Yeah, I was well known for my sense of humour, but I didn't like to break rules if I could avoid it. But he didn't care. And so I'd be, metaphorically sitting there just taking notes, going, look at him, he's on his way to the principal and he's just laughing. So that was very important in the Just series when I wrote those books. The main character is Andy at about 10, and Danny is his best friend, and Lisa Mackney, poor Lisa, long-suffering Lisa, who I was secretly in love with. So I put her into the book as well. Now, Just Tricking was published in 1997, and there was a full 10 years of working out what I wanted to do and how I was going to find the right flavour and style. And it was almost, as a last resort, I said, I can't create a character who's like a third person, but I can be the character. And if I told it from my point of view, I said, this is happening to me. I am in grade 5 and Danny is in trouble again. It started to feel right to me.
You've mentioned a number of kids' books. The one you said has probably been most influential on you was Alice in Wonderland. Can you describe what it was like when the fire went off in your mind, hearing that book?
I was down at Anglesey at a holiday place. We were on a picnic rug on the grass in the sun, and Mum's reading me Alice in Wonderland, so, what a blessing to discover that book in that context. And it was just vivid for me, and it made sense. It just amused me so much that all this energy was going into, and they're accomplishing nothing. And sometimes I think that's a kind of metaphor for for a lot of what we do as adults.
Straw Peter was another book that you said has been a powerful influence, and I grew up with that too. And it is one of the sickest, baddest, most awful book for children, which is why I love it.
Yeah.
And tell us a bit about why that was so influential.
Well, my grandmother had a copy of this, and this is the copy. It's about 100 years old at least. It was written in 1850. And it was a book of cautionary tales written by Dr. Heinrich Hoffmann, who was a psychiatrist.
He was a very sick man. Whatever he was, a very sick man.
I think he was just a mischievous cartoonist who enjoyed writing stories about kids who did the wrong thing and the terrible things that happened to them.
Ghastly things happen to the people in your books too. I mean, you don't withhold that they have their heads taken off and attached to their bottoms, or they force-fed disgusting, or the ants gang up on them.
Yeah, well, the dreadful story of Harriet and the matches. She plays with matches and ends up burning to death. But it's so over the top. It actually makes you laugh, which I think neutralises the horror. And I think that's an important thing. My violence and disgustingness is so beyond the pale that there's no really other option than to go, oh, for goodness sakes, this is ridiculous. And then you laugh and you find you're enjoying a very strange kind of subject matter.
I have to say, my son was the first one who brought me to Andy Griffiths, and it was Just Disgusting, which was one of the Just books, which is really your first big successful series. And 99.9% pus-free, you promise on the cover. It is outrageous. A lot of parents got extremely upset about this book, and it was banned from some libraries, I believe.
Around that time, that was early 2000s, I'd been on my best behaviour for the first few Just books. I was very careful to do what Tim Winton has described beautifully as the triangle theory, that when you write for kids, you are writing not just for you at one point of the equation, you write to the audience. To get to kids, you have to go through the gatekeepers, and you have to make sure you've got the librarians and the adults on side. Otherwise, they're not going to buy the books or put them in the libraries, so you won't get to your kids. A lot of librarians and adults have understandably grown up and moved beyond childhood, and they've forgotten how much you love nonsense humour, how you're kind of fascinated by disgusting stuff. As adults, we put that away and we go, well, that's no time for that. You know, we can move on now. But kids, that doesn't mean kids aren't going to enjoy it, and you can't harness that impulse in the service of reading. And it was so obvious to me. If they think bums are funny and if disgusting stuff is fascinating, why don't we write about that in a good quality way? And make them read books, and get that valuable reading practice going, so that they'll move through it. We all do, and then they'll move into more serious literature. And
if anyone doubts that serious literature really is your core love, I think we should have a demonstration of, in fact, how you have managed to put in quality literature. So here is the opening sentence of Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, a very serious book, which says, as Gregor Samsa awoke one morning from uneasy dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a gigantic insect. Andy, would you like to read the opening line of...
Where's my lawyer?
...of The Day My Bum Went Psycho?
Zach Freeman woke out of a deep sleep to see his bum perched on the ledge of his bedroom window.
This is bad. This is very bad.
We all borrow. The thing I loved about Kafka was this man has turned into an insect, but then he narrates it as if it's the most matter-of-fact thing in the world. That was the key for me to learning how to write humour.
Do you look back at that time when people were really looking down their nose at you, particularly with the psycho bum period, and people were really disparaging? I mean, they talked about your hair-raisingly disgusting anatomy-focused books with 1,243 mentions of bums, which is... someone's done a lot of work for that. Did you enjoy the controversy, or did it really peeve you?
Well, I was a punk rocker. I knew what controversy was, and I did enjoy it. There's part of me loves just annoying people and just getting a reaction. And the fact I was getting such extreme reactions, both positive and negative, told me I was absolutely on track. I was writing something that mattered.
Presenting the greatest fake rock group in the world, the Silver Cylinders. Let's hear it. Come on, 29! No one knows the line! Come on, self-God, come on! Come on, 29!
So, punk. Mm-hmm. Could you sing very well?
No, I was like a vocalist, rather. It all happened because we had this joke rock and roll band at school that was purely conceptual. And I grew up with Alice Cooper and David Bowie in their full theatrical glory. And to me, it was very funny. You know, I got that. It was a big joke. We're going to scare all the parents and we're going to sing about dead people. And then for a joke, we put it on as a concert on the last day of Year 12. And because I was the chief writer, we said, who's going to sing this stuff? And I was like, oh, I guess it's me, isn't it? Yeah, okay, well, I'll just pretend. And it was a great success, that concert. And it showed me I could stand up on a stage with a microphone and entertain a crowd, not with the beauty of my voice, but just with the spirit of what we were doing.
Caught in a giant clown. Diver attempts to free himself with the aid of a heavy metal crowbar. It's a giant clown!
And that was a great preparation to become a high school English teacher, which is another form of stage. And meeting all those kids for the first time, I realised there were a lot of kids who hadn't had the exposure to Alice in Wonderland or a wild book like Struvel Peter. They just thought reading was dull and boring and, you know, for chumps. And I went, no, you're making a huge mistake and I'm going to write you some stories. And so I started self-publishing those early stories and then doing book launches and performances of my written word. So, and pretty soon I was in front of groups of kids again as a visiting author.
So it's both factors, both
Yeah.
the writing, sure, but also the fact that you can sell it.
Yeah, and I'm very sensitive to an audience, particularly kids, of whether they're enjoying it or not.
If bums wanted to take over the world, they would all go to an extinct volcano, they'd get inside, fill it up, and then it wouldn't be a volcano anymore, it'd be a bumcano. Right? When a bumcano erupts, human beings are in big trouble, right?
I, in the early days, would relentlessly test all my written material against the live audience, because that was the only way I could tell if it was really as funny as I hoped it might be. So the experience of performing my writing and talking to groups over many years was crucial to the actual development of the writing, because it's like a conversation with an audience of children over many years.
I got into a lot of trouble once writing about a cat, a boy who set fire to the cat's tail. I'm not going to tell you it now because you might all go home and do it.
As part of what you've talked about, the safety proofing of childhood, that kids can't look at, where a cat is splat on the road, or they
Might upset them.
Yeah.
They might have a bad dream, and I don't want them to have bad dreams, but I want them to confront the reality of the world on the page. That the world is not always nice. There are flat cats on the road, and if you can, a book is a type of mental pre-rehearsal for real life when things go wrong. That's what stories are.
Why do you think we're so worried about children now?
I think I can absolutely understand the impulse that we want to make things right and pleasurable and as safe as possible. But at a certain point, that becomes totally non-productive for the child, because then they can't test out things in the real world. Take playgrounds, for instance. When we grew up, they were swings and slides, and you could fall off them and you could break your arm. And
People did.
yeah, but you could have a hell of a lot of fun. And you could test out your body and see what the consequences, what gravity meant, and you could take risks. And that's what we need people to be able to do in mental terms. And so if you're denying the kids, if you go, oh, we'll get rid of all these dangerous things, we'll just put pine logs, this is a dangerous way for society to go. So my books are the equivalent of swings and slides and roundabouts where you can fly off. I want at least this to be able to have mental rehearsal of fear and risk-taking, and let's see if we can imagine this, and let's go even further.
How have you managed to stay so close to your childhood, to the impulses and recollections of your childhood?
Yeah, I think somehow the window to childhood just stayed open. And I am an adult in most functional definitions of the word, but it doesn't mean that I can't remember what that was like, or that childhood voice is not looking, is the eyes of that child are still looking out through mine, and they're going, yeah, wouldn't it be fun to take that jar of corn relish and soak the label off and write vomit on it and then put it in someone's fridge? And I just go, yeah, what harm could come from that? So I let him out. And writing is the place where that voice really comes out. The best way for me to access that childhood voice that loves nonsense and absurdity and is totally irresponsible is you dampen down the adult voice of responsibility and looking ahead, and that's a bit dangerous. So that voice is not going to help me write good fiction. So one of the ways I can get rid of it is just to come into this writing space and turn up some really loud music. So it's kind of hard to think, and you relax and you just start playing in a musical kind of way with ideas and images, and you just let it go. Running also, you can access a deeper, sort of more ruminative, more meditative state of mind. Often I'll be running, enjoying the surroundings, and there'll just be what you should do with that plot is have the character do this. And you go, beautiful. Yeah, and then I just remember that and make sure I write it down when I get home.
Ready for a question?
For the Jill and all that, are they actually real people?
Well, I'm real. Terry's not. He's just this kind of made-up nut. Escaped from my writing book once. Jill is my wife in real life, although she is older than 9 years old. She's the editor of all the books, and so when Terry and I do this kind of messy playing around, I'll often bring this back to Jill, and she will look at it and go, well, Chip Man, yeah, that's good, but we need something more there. So she provides that role of feedback, which...
Another question up here.
There is no hugging or kissing in the Treehouse books.
Let's talk about Jill. She's, you met her professionally at a time that you had one marriage had gone south. You met this woman who not only improved your work, but clearly got you on some really deep level. Did you know it straight up?
Not straight up, because my first marriage had broken up and I'd concluded, obviously I'm a selfish artist who's unable to sustain relationships, so it's best if I just maybe don't have any more.
So you'd basically given up, you'd withdrawn from the field?
I had, because I thought, writing and comedy are my first loves and no one else can get a look in, so I might as well just accept that. So it was with both a mixture of delight and horror that I realised Jill was an amazing companion who could share both the love of comedy, writing, the feeling of being a slight outsider to everything. And as we worked on the book, I could see she was a comedy specialist. She was able to zero in on the jokes, get rid of the words that didn't need to be there, and then add some of her own. And so after the first book was written, we kept finding excuses to call each other up, and I'd just like to talk about this thing that has nothing to do with the book, and would you like to go to the comedy festival? So we've just formed a wonderful alliance, both personally and professionally, over the years.
What do you see it as?
I don't know, I guess it could be like that sort where you go in and then something else comes out, or it could be like, you know, in movies where you have a mad professor and he always has like the two people and like some kind of thing on them, like he's, you know, when they swap, put something inside someone else. So it could be.
So maybe there's an I'm going to spread it
Gotta
over
have
here.
some.
Yeah, I think more
inputs.
go in, you get two inputs and then one output. Yeah.
Both Jill and I, we have a structured approach to story. We love the story to be an arc that's going somewhere at every point, or if it's not going somewhere, that's totally intentional.
Well, maybe they'd chuck it in from the top. It's just Terry, like, chucking a unicorn in the right. Very nice.
And then, Andy, what are you doing?
Just ordering you around.
Spin faster, Terry.
Faster.
Terry Denton comes in on that.
And maybe his other leg can't do this. No, I won't go there.
And Terry adds a lot of chaos and randomness to the process. And Terry is throwing metaphoric spanners into the works the whole time.
That part cow, part bird. Okay. And then so you're going to need dials and all sorts of
lots of
wangly
switches
things.
and things.
Yeah.
He can draw anything and he'll redraw it as many times as I need him to, till I can go, yes, that one. That's what delights my inner 10-year-old.
And that could be chasing Andy at this point.
Okay. Yep. I could just leave that there.
The less instruction I give him, the better. So we're just going to have a room full of exploding eyeballs here. And he goes, like this? And I go, yes, that's...
Just like
I knew
that.
you could do that.
Years ago, there was mutterings of an Andy Griffiths adult novel.
The 80k novel that I signed up for and never produced because the kids kept me so busy. But my earliest readers are now entering their mid-20s and I'm meeting them. They're coming along to signings and events. But the kids who grew up with me often will come and say, you know, these books just defined my childhood. They made school bearable and the library a really fun place. And they're very passionate.
So will you write for those older people? Is that a book? And don't duck, don't weave.
Yeah. Increasingly, I want to connect them to all the influences and things that are going on in my adult mind. But it's not a priority because what seemed to me urgent was to get some books that would engage a generation of kids back into reading. And around the same time as I started, you had the rise of Harry Potter, Captain Underpants. It was like the mid-90s, writers all over the world said, hey, we've got to get back to storytelling for the pure fun of storytelling. So I think I'm part of that. And it's so interesting to see so much of this heavily visual approach to writing exactly like Struve Peter, which I think we've just gone full circle. Alice in Wonderland relies on those pictures of John Tenniel. You can't imagine the text divorced from the pictures. And so I think it's a perennial thing that we need, pictures and text working together to give children the easiest possible entry into what is quite a difficult act of decoding text and rewarding them as much as possible to create our readers and thinkers and humorists of the future.
And it's been such a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here's a challenge for you. Can you draw the inside of Andy's mind?
Okay. What else is in his hand?
You should put that in the article.